there were two pieces that were recently published. One about the Chabad Loft, which is the actual title, in Greenwich Village, and they have a new sushi restaurant there that they've started that is doing kosher omakase dinners. I don't know if you know what an omakase dinner is, anybody listening there, but it basically means that you don't get a menu, you just sit down and you eat whatever the chef has decided is best for the night. And these are typically very, very expensive, very high-end sushi restaurants that are doing that, and they've decided to go and start that as well. There's another piece in Hey Alma where they interviewed Tova Sterling, who I feel is at this point unavoidable on social media these days. The program that she has been running called Sinners Shabbat lately, and other events around that, she says that she didn't feel comfortable in the usual young professional events, so she started making ones for Jews that were more on the fringes of the community. It feels like these are part of a larger trend in Judaism and actually religion in general about trying to make traditions more accessible by rebranding them, making them fit more modern sensibilities. I'm curious if you think that this is a good thing. What do you think? How do we feel about marketing and rebranding faith in general?
I have notes.
Go ahead. Go. You need to start. Get us started.
You've got notes. You should go first.
I was doing morning pages responses. Okay, so a lot of people like to knock on Chabad. So I just want to acknowledge that people knock on Chabad, but also they do a tremendous amount of good. And I think like good all over the world. As a grad student, I had this, fabulous Shabbat dinner on the canals in Venice at the Chabad house with like hundreds of my co-religionists. And they just they offer that everywhere. And I want to acknowledge that that's pretty amazing. And at the same time, I sort of always wonder about that undercurrent of outreach. And like, if somebody's trying to save my soul by selling me their particular brand of Judaism, which really makes me chafe, which isn't Chabad specific. And as Avi reminded me, maybe is the context in which I met him many years ago in NCSY. And so like, it's sort of like our sort of evangelism of Jews trying to save other Jews' souls by bringing them in. And so there's something that gives me the icks about that. On the other hand, if we believe that like there's something beautiful and amazing about living a rich Jewish life, then of course, why don't we want to share that? Of course we want to share that. And I think that was sort of, I think that the Hey Alma piece and the Fins and Scales piece were sort of pulling in different directions because like Chabad was trying to pull people, I think, into tradition and help them find an entry in like, is it a disingenuous way? Like, no, my Jewish life isn't really all fancy sushi dinners, though it is sometimes. And the Hey Alma piece, I think, was using tradition, but on the fringes, and raised questions for me about like the boundaries of inclusion and like, what it costs to be inclusive in sort of different ranges of inclusion. So that was my initial read on those two pieces.
I kind of applaud them. I think this is great. I have long been championing the idea that Judaism doesn't sell itself to a younger generation, at least in the world that I live in a non-Orthodox world. It's a more secular world where people, I think their Jewish identity is often very cultural. It's often very personal, family, private. They'll go to synagogue when they're invited for, a friend's kid's bar mitzvah. They'll go to a Jewish wedding if it's their friend's wedding, but they're not seeking out these kinds of things. And I applaud Chabad. I applaud Tova Sterling. I was saying for a long time when I worked in the synagogue world, if we believe in our product, we have to find creative ways to get people in the door to experience our product, because us standing and saying, look at the way that we do shacharit is not grabbing them. So I applaud anyone who's creatively trying to get people in the door and then hoping their product will take it from there.
You're making a very interesting distinction, though, between getting people in the door to shul and what I'm seeing the difference here, even with the Chabad event, which is that these are not Jewish events. These are events for Jews. And a lot of Jews see that event, think to themselves that that's what they have to do to be Jewish, is just go to events for Jews and not think to themselves that there's actually Judaism that you have to do. And when all you're selling as like, oh, if you're not really a young Jewish professional that wants to go to these like high-end fancy cocktail nights to meet other young Jewish professionals, instead you'd rather go to a burlesque kiddush, right? It's not really a Jewish event. It's a burlesque event, and you happen to be there with a lot of other Jews who are going to laugh and really appreciate that there's kiddush happening as part of this burlesque performance.
But why? But wait, why is the Young Jewish Professionals event Jewish then?
Oh, it's not.
Okay, just clarify.
What's the line though? Like what? Why can't a bunch of Jewish people doing something together be a Jewish event? It could be like what defines that? I'm wondering. I'm not criticizing. I'm wondering because we have this argument all the time. Like in Winnipeg, as an example, the Rady Center has had for 50 years an annual sports dinner with a big sports guest that helps raise money and do things like that. And there was a debate many years ago: should this dinner be kosher? You know, the kashrut issue was raging the cost, and people were making the argument, it's not a Jewish dinner. It's a dinner with a bunch of Jews who are into sports. And if we want to, you know, and I'm always very fascinated by considering community is such a huge part of who we are. And whether it's the March of the Living or summer camp and having Jewish people around other Jewish people, is it the doing Jewish things? Is it doing only Jewish things? Is it doing one Jewish thing for every 5 non-Jewish? I don't know.
I don't have the ratio, but I think it's both. I really think that we should be doing more Jewish things just with other Jews, more things with other Jews. It's always good to be part of a community, even if it's not the exclusive community that you have. But there should also be a pathway from that to doing actually Jewish things like ritual moments, text-based learning moments, anything that actually does something that 100 years ago would have been perceived as like, oh, a Jewish ritual, a Jewish event, a Jewish something. And I think that Chabad actually is very good at creating that pipeline. Right, they know that if they do these omakase dinners, they might try to get some people and get them to like put on tefillin or to come to a Shabbat dinner or to like and eventually move on. But you know, I see the vast majority of that not always working out, and definitely outside of Chabad, it doesn't work nearly as much.
So I think that part of what the article's made explicit is that Chabad is using. They said, right, the omakase dinner is lead generation. It's reaching out to those people, getting them on a mailing list, letting them know about more events.
It's the weekend in the like timeshare in the hotel, so that you can listen to the timeshare presentation for an hour.
And it's ultimately it's how do we bring these people into community and how do we build a connection with them style. And like Chabad is I have a friend who says it's like the most successful franchise on the planet, right? That like business schools should be studying Chabad because like there is nothing that's more successful.
We actually had. I would fight you on that one because we had on the Bonjour Chai, we had Samuel Helmed on a long time ago, and he's like, you might want to rethink that because at the end of the day, how many people are Chabad, right? Beyond the people that go to Chabad, they're not really making many more people, and they've been doing this for generations. They're not really, their conversion rate is very low, so to speak.
But
in terms
I think
of
they're okay with that. It depends on like what they would articulate the mission as, and maybe one of us should have looked that up before. But But if the mission is connecting Jews and giving them warm, fuzzy feelings about Judaism and then hoping that they will come back, I think that that's very successful. The Sinners Shabbat, I think that the goal is different.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And like, I don't feel like it's, you know, for me to say that, you know, it's good or it's bad. It's people, it's I think another effort at community building, and like Judaism provides the symbols and the excuse. But, you know, maybe I'll reframe that when we get to the Torah section later. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned NCSY a while ago, and I remember when I was an advisor, I was never a student and I was never an NCSYer, so to speak. Matthew, what did you have young youth programming? Were you BBYO, USY?
BBYO has the biggest presence in Winnipeg because I always tell people because I went to Jewish school till the end of grade 12, it was really a lot of the same people, and I was good with not doing camp and not doing BBYO, but I had a lot of friends who, and my parents actually, my mom especially, were really into it back in the day as well.
So I was an advisor for many, many years in NCSY, and I remember the director of NCSY at the time, for the vast majority of the time that I was in NCSY, doing, you know, being an advisor for all these Shabbatons, was this guy named Yaakov Blanchet, who was really, really a great great guy. I'm still friendly with him. Every time I see him, we stop and chat, and we have, jokes that are 20 years old that are just keep going and going. But he had a moment, like, we were sitting in the office one day, and he was like, why are we always trying so hard to target the cool kids? He's like, don't the nerdy kids need Judaism too? And he's like, and they'll come to anything. He's like, why are we wasting all of this energy and effort to be like, we're going to do the coolest thing you can possibly do to show you that Judaism is cool, right? Just do the Judaism stuff and say that it's for teens. And a lot of teens that are not super cool are just going to show up because they're going to want to be part of a program anyways. And,
it's true.
And
so
I was
true.
like, it really got me thinking. And I don't know if you've had the same experience where so much of the outreach world is really focused on this, like, we got to show you how cool Judaism can be, or how relevant, or how like it's so meant for this generation, and you can do this and be Jewish, or you can go skiing and still be religious. You can do all these things. And I don't know, that's something that really does rub me the wrong way, that says that, like, it's bad marketing.
But you always want what you can't have, right? And I always had that joke, like, too cool for shul. And so, like, you feel like at any moment you'll have a program, you invite the nerdy kids, as you say, Avi, and they'll come. So it's the kids who don't want to come that you're like, we got to get those kids. We got to get those kids.
Are you saying that I wasn't one of the cool kids?
Oh,
I'm saying
you
I
were, but
wasn't
you know how
one of
much
the cool
you know how
kids.
much energy that they had to expend to make sure that somebody of the caliber of Yedida Eisenstadt, right? They could have gotten 40 nerdy kids, I'm sure, for like one Yedida.
So so one of the questions that the Hey Alma piece raised for me, so she says, the quote is, and I think this is a great quote, is the price we pay to be inclusive is to be on the fringe. So with that recognition, right, so my question is about, like, authenticity and what the compromise is, right? Like, I don't know how, like,
so
how cool is it?
that's
right?
actually interesting,
and,
because
go ahead.
they're not on the fringe. They are the center of their world. And they made something that makes perfect sense for them. And they're leading their authentic Jewish self in that way. Right? They're saying
And
to
it's
themselves, this is who I
different
am
than
as a
mine.
person. Yeah, exactly. That puts them on the fringe of the mainstream society, but they're at least being real about what they like and saying, this is who I am. I actually suspect that the vast majority, I'm going to fight anybody on this one. This is a hill I'm going to die on. The vast majority of people that do outreach, Kiruv, NCSY, any sort of, like, whether it's for youth or for adults, so many of these people, it says more about them, what they're doing in outreach, than it says about the people that they're reaching, and the marketing, the coolness, the cool, all this. I think that for a lot of these people, they were not cool as teens. They really still want to be cool. They need to feel, and maybe that for a lot of those people, they also need to feel that faith is cool and interesting and relevant in order for it to stay connected to it themselves, right? And they're speaking more to themselves, and they're speaking to the people that they're trying to reach out to.
And it's community building, right? I think there's, like, some slight nuance between Kiruv and, like, trying to bring people closer to the tradition, however construed, and building community. And, like, there's overlap there, but I think that they're slightly different. Fun fact, back in 2014, I wrote an column op-ed-y thing for the Canadian Jewish News. And the question that they posed to me was how to save conservative Judaism. I was graduating from graduate school at JTS that year and coming back to Toronto. And what I wrote was, shuls need to be community centers. Synagogues need to be places where your kids are comfortable. It's a space that they've been in since they were a child, that they're comfortable running around and being a kid, and they know where all the good hiding places are, and that it's a place that they're just, like, familiar and comfortable, not a place that they go once a year and they don't know where the bathrooms are.